Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you, JJ. I'm delighted to be here.
Good. I can't wait to cover the 9 powerful ways to decrease conflict now. Oh my God, the world needs this right now. One of the reasons why I'd asked Kathy to come on the podcast right now is because actually she is in the process of launching, she's already launched her new book, which we're going to talk about later. And it's all about compassion. But I thought the 9 powerful ways to decrease conflict now would resonate with a lot of you and people that you know because of what's going on in the world. And honestly, what's always going on in the world at some point, somewhere, it's always going on in some form or another. It's going to look different. It's going to show up in different packages and different places in the world, but it's literally always going on that there are conflicts. And most of us haven't learned how to deal with it. We don't understand why it's there. And where I have been on Kathy's list for a long time because she does nonviolent communication. A lot of you know about Marshall Rosenberg and nonviolent communication. I use the feelings and needs and that 3 effective ways to communicate in everything I do. But today we're going to talk about it a little bit more deeply and add things that you haven't heard me talk about because they're what Kathy does. And I think that are very powerful. So I look forward to this conversation. Why don't we get started with, and by the way, this is also a booklet that is free that you guys can download and take for yourselves because we're not going to have time to cover all 9 powerful ways to decrease conflict now. So why don't you go on over to jjfilzames.com/conflict and then you can download this for yourself and have it and you can go over it. You don't have to take notes and you can see the other 6 ways that we're not going to talk about today. So Kathy, before we get into the 9 powerful ways to decrease conflict, I'd love to share and know more about you and your story and how you got here now. I know you're a therapist and that you found Dr. Marshall Rosenberg and found like this was the missing piece for you. But how did you even get in this path in the first place?
Yes, yes. Well, I was on vacation with a few friends and somebody said, "Hey, here's this book, Nonviolent Communication." And I went, "Oh, that looks interesting. I'll have to read it sometime." And a couple of months later, a friend called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to organize this workshop. Would you like to come?" And I said, "Yes. Not only would I like to come, I'd like to help organize it," which I did. And halfway through that training, I was online looking for the next opportunity because I knew in that moment, this is the missing link. I have been involved in personal growth of many different flavors for many years. And this was 2005. And when I found this, I went, you know what? This is the piece. This is the how to. How do I live these inner values? This idea that I want peace or that I want to live love or, have kind interactions with people. And I'll sit and meditate. And then, how many of us have had this experience? You sit and meditate, you get all clear and you feel great. And then you go out in your living room and start interacting with someone. And the next thing you know, bam, you're triggered. And so for me, nonviolent communication has become the way to live our core values. How do I bring it off the meditation cushion, out of my mind, into my heart, and out my mouth, into my relationships and into the world? So that's what got me going. That first workshop, and I knew it at that moment I wanted to teach it. I knew it was the thing for me. And it's a good fit. I've been, like I said, doing other work for years, psychotherapy, breath work, healing work, hands-on healing work, all kinds of things. And a lot of spiritual inquiry work as well. And so all of those things fit together. All of it just kind of went, yes, nonviolent communication integrates so much of all of it.
I felt similarly about one particular piece of it and my audience knows this story. It's, I think I told you this when we met. I didn't want to read the book, not because I didn't want to read the book, because the title turned me off. Nonviolent communication. Who identifies themselves as a violent communicator? Like nobody does, except the people that understand that they're angry and they carry around anger, or maybe they're short with people, or they have they're extremely judgy, which we all are to some degree. But the people that are aware of that might consider themselves violent communicators, but it's a stretch, that word. And when you start to understand some of the subtle ways, like the word should, that we're all violent to ourselves, it was a game changer for me as well. And I've been incorporating it in my work. I mean, back then I was a trainer working with people's emotions, and now I'm the opposite. I work with people's emotions. And then I add in the health piece, from time to time when it's necessary to focus on. But for right now, I'm in agreement with, there were a whole bunch of light bulbs that went off for me. It became like, if we could all just get our own needs met, then there'd be peace in the world. If we could just identify what our needs are, game over. Like, because we're walking around blaming everybody else for why we feel the way we do. And I just thought that just took victim mentality to a different level of responsibility. Like, it gave us responsibility of our own feelings, our own needs, because who is talking about needs? Nobody. I don't think anyone is having a conversation about what is my need, not in a needy way, but what is my real need? Do I have a need for? We go straight into, I'm upset and it must be your fault. I'm upset because the world's like this. I'm upset because, right?
And I need you too.
Right. Oh my God. I just had somebody say that. Yes.
And make me feel better.
Yep.
So, yeah.
My feelings are hurt and you need to act differently.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh.
There's so much conditioning around that word need and needy and not okay and burden and a lot of conditioning we have around, is it okay to have needs or express needs, or, oh no, you're only supposed to care about other people, or, oh no, it's all about me. So, this whole negative conditioning we have around needs can really be a problem in terms of wanting to come to wake up to, hey, I have needs and you have needs. And you know what they are? They're beautiful qualities of life that are underneath the things we're doing. They're what motivate us. They're qualities of life like love and belonging and efficiency and contribution and creativity. And wow, when we start talking about needs like that, they're no longer these nasty, bad things that are needy. They're qualities of life that you go, I would like to express this. I would like you to express it with me. I'd like to have this in our relationship. Would you like to join me? Everything becomes an invitation then, instead of this, you got to meet my needs and, do it for me and make me better. It just, there's a whole nother way.
Yes, a much more effective way.
Yeah.
So out of curiosity, so you started nonviolent communication work in your own business, and then you created the 9 powerful ways to decrease conflict. Now, what motivated you to do this workbook that you created?
Well, it's a short booklet that really, my intention is to just introduce people to some of the basic key concepts of nonviolent communication, which I also like to call compassionate communication, if that helps a little bit. But I really wanted to just tweak people's interest and say, here's a taste, here are some concepts, and if you like this, let's go for more. So I put the booklet together, and yeah, I hope people will tap into it and get a few hints that are things you can start applying right away.
Let's talk about what kinds of conflict this can be applied to. Now, I know you're going to say probably everything, but let's be specific. Can someone who is having an emotional response to the war that's going on in the world, to the travesty, is this something that they will get benefit from?
Absolutely. A lot of the conflict, there's the conflict, the war, like most of us don't have the opportunity to go there and mediate or help negotiate that. And what happens is this inner turmoil. There's a real difficult, challenging inner experience around this shouldn't be happening, and what about the pain? And it pulls on our heartstrings and breaks our hearts. So what NVC has to offer us in that is the self-empathy, the self-compassion, the compassion we can extend to others who are involved in suffering, ways we can contribute. And it first takes this turning inward. What is my pain? What are my judgments? Who do I have set up as the enemy image in the situation? Could I find some compassion or some common ground in there somewhere, that these are human beings doing what they can to try to meet their needs, even though it's extremely difficult. So the self-empathy, finding some compassion so we can become calm and centered and find our core values again. And then when we choose to move or contribute or extend our compassion, it's coming from a very clear, peaceful place within, instead of adding more angst and stress and anger, etc. Could we come back to peace inside and then offer that out? And that's one of the tools NVC offers us, through self-compassion and self-empathy.
There are a lot of great stories in the book one that sticks out of nonviolent communication of a woman who learned these tools and then stopped a rapist mid-rape because she clicked into what the man must have been feeling to do this, and talked to him and identified with his feelings and his needs, which diffused the situation, and he stopped. And most people think, well, that's or the war that I think Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, the two tribes, I believe there was a story about the two tribes, and that they were fighting each other. And when he went to find out what the needs were, they were fighting for different things. One was fighting for land, and one was fighting for, I think, safety. And so when we understood that people are, like you said, coming back to that, no one's bad nor good. We're acting from a place of a need that we have and a fear that we have. And I like to say, when people are talking about the abortion conflicts, that the two sides aren't talking about the same thing. Women there are pro-life people who are talking about the death of a child or in life in general, and the pro-choice are talking about freedom. So there's freedom and then there's life, and they're not the same conversation. They're wanting different things, and sometimes there'll be overlap and sometimes there won't. But learning to see the difference in that, the topic that we're talking about, we're not interpreting it the same. They're not the same basic needs per person that's having this conversation. So when we start to look at conflicts in that way, we can be brought back into the humanness, like you said, the compassion, the human, the centeredness of what's really going on here. And let's uncover that instead of decide that we're all talking about the same thing, which we're probably not. And then it escalates the drama, the pain, the fear, the feeling victimized, which doesn't ever solve the problem. And I think when we respond and react in those ways, we never get anywhere. And so I think the only choice is to be coming from that compassionate place of trying to understand. So with that, let's go into, let's do a couple of the 9 powerful ways to decrease conflict, because I do want everyone to get it. So everybody can go and grab that again, jjhussains.com/conflict. And then we can talk a little bit about your new book, Live Compassion, because of course, that's what we all would be happiest doing, living in compassion for ourselves and others. So what would be the first of the 9 powerful ways to decrease conflict?
Yes, the first suggestion that I'm making in that booklet is to think before you speak. Now, I remember when I was a kid, and my mom would actually say that to me and to my siblings, of which, there were 7 of us, and always lots of turmoil going on. But this thing she would say is, think before you speak. And I'd be like, oh, what am I supposed to think? You go off and you're like, what am I supposed to do that? Think what? Am I supposed to build my case and how right I am? Or, get my justifications going? And the answer to that is no, not necessarily. And the other thing that I think is important here to bring out is that, how do we take time to think before we speak? Everything happens so fast in our lives these days. And it seems like we've bought into this sense of urgency, that everything somebody says becomes this urgent demand. You need to respond right now. I need an answer. Boom, boom, boom. And that does not allow us the space to stop and think. So we need to create space, first of all, to find a way to create a pause, slow things down so we can consider and do some self-understanding about what we're feeling and what's at the heart of the matter. However, things are moving so fast and we're buying into this demand urgency thing. So one of the things to do there is to actually tell a person, you know what, this seems really important. I'd like to take a moment. Could we just pause here? And then you can actually breathe, calm down if you've been triggered, and think about, well, what is at the heart of the matter here? For me, and even for the other person, to have consideration for both of us. So I think that first piece of just paying attention, how fast am I moving? What am I buying into around urgency? And what is at the heart of the matter? So to create the pause, slow down, and check in.
I love it. I'm going to add for my community and for me, like another set of words to interpret this, even though that was perfect and it doesn't necessarily need it, but to add in sort of the JJ lingo, if you will, or law of attraction lingo, it would be to stop momentum. Like the think before you speak, right? Because the emotional momentum of a trigger will, and I always remind people, do not make decisions from being out of alignment. And that's because we're in this negative momentum. We're out of alignment with who we are. We're not centered. We're not clear. And then we're telling stories. We're, catastrophizing, if you will. We're out of alignment. So of course that momentum, and the bigger it gets and the bigger it gets and the bigger it gets, the scarier it gets. And then you're making decisions, or you're saying things that you normally wouldn't say because the momentum has taken over. So if you think before you speak, you give yourself a chance to come back to the center and stop the negative momentum. So you can get, even if you're still going to talk about something negative or emote something that's not positive, of course, because there wouldn't be a conflict if it wasn't, then yeah. So I love that think before you speak. It's simple. We've all heard it. And I think for me, I know sometimes there's that moment though too. And the thinking changes the consciousness. The thinking brings us back into the body versus in reaction. But for me, sometimes I think the thinking, I don't people to overthink, right? Because we repress a lot of emotions in this life, which is why there's so much addiction and so much, suicide, honestly, that's happening. There are so many things in this world that we are out of balance in because we have no way to process our emotions. So when people finally feel like, oh my God, I can let this out, and it feels good to let it out, but we're not in a state of having a clarity with that. It's almost like the buildup is so big, and then we get triggered, and then we let it all out, and it feels good in the moment, but then we regret everything that we've said or done because it's so out of alignment. So think before you speak. Even taking a beat, very good for all of us. I know for me, when I have to make a big decision, I'm having something that I'm going through right now. And every time I have a thought about how to do it differently, my body goes, nope. I go, okay, like, don't make a decision. Nope. It's not the right decision. You're out of alignment. You're in scarcity. Don't do it. So I'm like, okay. So you just listen to that little inner guide that wants you to slow down and get centered. So think before you speak. I love it. What's next?
Absolutely. The next piece is to be curious. So this to me is an interesting one, because so many of us think, well, I am curious. I just asked you what was wrong. I just asked you, who's to blame here. I just asked you, all the details about the situation. But it's we were looking for a kind of curiosity that creates connection. When we're curious about who's right and who's wrong, who's to blame, who deserves punishment or reward, the focus is one that's going to more likely create disconnection. So we want to bring in a different kind of curiosity, instead of, like you were saying, running off on all this thinking, these thoughts about what I think should be happening. So we get should thoughts, we get assumptions, we get judgments and labels and all that stuff. And we assume we know something. And if we come into it already thinking, I know what your intentions are, I know I'm right, I know, all the facts in this situation, I'm the smart one here, that's not curious. I'm already thinking I know what's happening. So we want to bring it back into what is happening. Make some space for somebody else's experience. Make some room for being curious about what is at the heart of it. What are the needs that are alive here? What are the feelings? So it's a different flavor of curiosity. And, what would we like to do to make life feel better here? Marshall Rosenberg was famous for saying that. How can we make life more wonderful? So this is a kind of curiosity that connects versus disconnects. So opening up, like, what's actually going on here, instead of assuming, thinking I already know, or being curious about the right wrongness of it.
It's a hard trap. There are lots of astrological signs, lots of government entities, lots of, things out there that we are told to think of as right and wrong. And I don't know, maybe it's the Sag Pisces in me my whole life. I just think of everything as pretty gray. Like it's all contextual. It's all subject. It's all circumstantial, because it isn't always one way. There are reasons why, I remember thinking, there's a movie out there and I have to figure out what it is, but there was some movie, and if you guys know what it is, you can let me know in a DM or something, where somebody says, like, I would never either murder somebody, or there's never a situation where I would do that. And then the whole movie goes backwards or goes forward to create the situations that would cause that person to do the thing they said they would never do. and you get to see the circumstances change and how the emotions change and how the fears and all the different things that change that get them to do the thing they said they would never ever do. And so it isn't necessarily a fun movie. It's actually kind of dark, but it does prove the point of that when we say something in that moment, we don't know what it's like to be in someone else's shoes necessarily, or to deal with different sets of circumstances. So we too often, you and I were discussing before we started recording about judgment. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that right now before we get to the next one. Because I think this curiosity piece, I think judgment comes in the way before curiosity. Judgment doesn't allow curiosity in, because we're quick to judge because we want to feel, and I think that might come out of wanting to feel safe. There are too many people that don't feel safe in someone else's world, or, oh, if you think this, then that must mean something about me. So I'm going to assume that you're just wrong somehow to protect myself. And again, that cuts off that curiosity piece of, why not just ask? I love that quote from Marshall Rosenberg. So I appreciate you bringing that back up again. How can we make life more wonderful? And when the tragedies recently happened in the world, I didn't have an opinion because I don't know anything. And I thought, and then I felt like I was being blamed because I didn't have an opinion and I didn't have the right opinion, and because I wasn't doing anything. And I thought, how can I do something? I don't even know what's going on. I don't understand anything. How can I make a judgment about any of this when I don't know anything about any of it except what I see? But I know what I see isn't as black and white as some people may think. So it gets sticky to, even I think it's sometimes dangerous. I don't feel safe not having an opinion. I don't feel safe that I want to be curious and understand a little bit more and ask the questions that some would say, how dare you? They're just wrong. That was just wrong. There's no other way to look at it, but that it's wrong. And then all of a sudden my curiosity is not celebrated or supported. My curiosity is now a way to say you're part of the problem.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and that can be very frustrating. And so then we shut down for fear of being made wrong for even being curious. And yes, this curiosity can serve us to find out, well, the focus in this work is not so much on judging right and wrong. It's about actually shifting out of right or wrong. And it's very needs focused. Like, what is meeting needs? What needs are people trying to meet? What is motivating people is these needs. So what is the motivation? What is really at the core of it? So it's a very different focus than going around, well, that's right, that's wrong, that's right, that's wrong, that's good, that's bad, that's, it's a very different focus. It's about, well, what is happening? And how do the humans here feel? And what are they longing for that is leading them to take these actions? And that opens us up to each other's humanity instead of making everyone into an enemy and then fighting for that enemy type thing. So when you talked about, asked me to talk a little bit about judgments. So the third way of actually reducing conflict is to start taking a look at judgments. So when judgments arise, we get curious and start translating those judgments and looking at, instead of focusing on a label or an evaluation of someone, good, bad, right, wrong, etc., we start saying, well, what are the facts? This happened, then that happened. She said this, he said that. She showed up in this way, he responded like this with these words, instead of he's a jerk, she's always late, no one has any respect for anyone around here, which those are tiny things, but it's the same thing, whether it's small or whether it's really widespread in terms of even a war. So when we focus on judgments and when judgments come up, it's actually a wonderful opportunity, because in case you hadn't noticed, we all have judgments, right? Everybody's judging all the time. And that's part of naturally what the brain does. It's trying to make sense of the world and trying to keep us safe, like you were talking about earlier. And it's trying to sift through and say, okay, make all the sense out of this and then figure out what to do. So thank you, brain, thank you, mind, for judgments. And then there's all this negative judgment about good, bad, right, wrong, who deserves to be punished, and what are you going to do to make me feel better, and all of that. And that's the part we can sit up and say, let me take notice, because every one of those judgments has an important cue for me about what matters to me. When I say that person is such a jerk, and they never think about anyone but themselves, what am I wanting? I want
You're wanting consideration, connection, attention, validation,
love, like
love.
mutuality, something where there's some kind of care, right? So every judgment has contained within it, if you unwrap it like a gift, there's some little golden nugget in there that's telling us what we're passionate about. And if we can discover that, we can move beyond the judgments. And then we can just make a clear observation that is a reference point. Oh, you showed up, half an hour past the time we agreed on. Okay, then we can move forward and start talking about how we feel, what our values are, instead of getting stuck on you inconsiderate, what, which can create defensiveness and disconnection. So we we notice judgments. This is it's not linear, it's all of these elements come alive as we are interacting with each other. So we get judgments come up or feelings come up, we get stimulated, thinking happens, all of this is happening. Can we slow down, create the pause, take a look, get curious in this open-hearted way, and start translating our judgments into just facts, which then we can say, oh, this is the stimulus, and what I want you to know is that here's some impact on my emotions and impact on my needs. So that's a little taste, of some of all of the elements that come into this awareness of conflict, and how can we start shifting, slowing down and shifting out of it by noticing our thinking, diving in, opening our hearts, bringing compassion.
One of the reasons Dr. Rosenberg went on the path that he did was because as a child, he was in the riots, and he said, what compels a person to act and behave like this? What causes us inside to kill each other? And that is how that started, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Which I reminded people of recently, because it's that curiosity piece of saying, this is going on around me, and I can say, this is bad, this is awful, this is wrong, this is sad. And if I stop there, then I never feel any better, nor do I make sense of, nor do I ever live in a place of a solution. But if I can ask myself, what would compel somebody to act like this and behave like this? Mm-hmm. And then we start to be in that compassionate place of, we can understand the choices we have in resolving it for ourselves or for others. And like you said, and so I want to move into, I'm guessing, because you've been working with this work for so long with clients and people in your life, what compelled you to write the book? So let's talk about Live Compassion.
Yes, thank you. Over all these years, I've been teaching for about 18 years now. And during this time, so many times people have said things to me like, oh, I wish I could carry you around with me. Could you just be like a little whisper in my ear when I'm in the middle of one of these conversations? Or, wow, this has been a really profound experience working with this. And, I'm kind of struggling with, how can I remember this every single day? How can I make this shift? And, we've created a lot of habits over a lot of years, most of us. And it takes time and awareness and support and practice, lots and lots of practice to unravel the old habits and build the new habits and the new ways of thinking and perceiving human beings in life. And so someone one day said to me, so I'm really struggling with this. I can't remember to do it every day. And I went, aha, I want to do something that offers the opportunity for people to actually have something to focus on each day that is an NVC related principle, concept, skill. And so I have created 365 days of how to live and bring attention to inquire, bring that curiosity in and inquire into ourselves and into others and into our interactions, So really, it was stimulated by people asking for, how can I do this every day? I keep forgetting. And so I've got all these practices, one for every day, something to focus on, journal about, get creative with, go out in the world and observe and interact and try them out. So many skills and opportunities to explore.
And where can people get the book?
livecompassionbook.com. And
Okay.
it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and probably other booksellers as well. Those are the two key ones that I know. Here's what it looks like. I got really excited about the cover. Such a journey of creating it, and I'm very happy with the way it came out.
Beautiful.
There's some fun things on the back as well. Very delighted with it. I really enjoy some of the things about this book, which is that I asked a few people to contribute some of their experiences of living NVC in their daily lives. And there's some just beautiful stories there. And I've also included some poetry. I think it was somewhere around 2007. I had this experience of just like, I would call it falling apart or cracking open and just coming into this whole new level of awareness and presence. And when that happened, poetry started just coming out. And I thought, oh, I'm going to do this for NVC and bring it into my classes. And then I thought, well, why limit it? Why limit it? Just let it come and let it be whatever. And so I've included some poems in the book as well, hoping to inspire, and they match up with some of the different topics in the book that people will be working with. So there's poetry and stories to inspire, interspersed between the daily practices.
What do you think the most dramatic change in your own life was when you started to learn and use these tools?
You know, I would say one of the biggest things was being able to work with the reactivity. You know, that part where I was saying, like, I hold these beautiful values, but somebody could say something and pop, sort of pop my pain and get reactive. And I would say this piece about saying, okay, stop and don't react. Pull back, take a moment, value the relationship and the interaction. This recognition that what I say now is going to impact this relationship going forward. So let's be careful here. And to be able to really take those moments and practice self-empathy and come back to a conversation and have it be really coming from the clarity, the calm, and the heart. So I would say I have decreased my reactivity by, I don't know, 95%. Huge, 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 really. Yeah.
I love that you have it in a book where every day you're being tasked with something that you can do or journal or pay attention to. I do small kind of group coaching focused on core wounds and rewiring core wound patterns and things. And in not the one I'm currently in, but in the one right before, I remember asking sort of halfway through the program what people were experiencing or feeling or their biggest sort of aha. And the first one came from when I was teaching about nonviolent communication and feelings and needs, and it happened again in this current rewire, because it's that idea that so many of us don't understand that we also can get our own needs met, that we're looking outside of ourselves to get these needs met, which sets us up in victim mentality, but also has us not feel safe. And when I think we start to apply this work to our own lives in the way, it gives us a sense of confidence and a security and safety that maybe some people don't have, because we perceive the world as having things that we need. And we have to either perform for love or we have to try to convince somebody to get it for us. And it's almost a disconnect of our own power and I think what's possible. So I love that this is a way to sort of deepen the practice of this in, from day to day. And again, I just teach a very small part of it. You teach all of it and I love all of it. But for me, there were very specific pieces that I wanted to use in the work that I was creating and doing. And I see the giraffe behind you. Is the giraffe because of the giraffe ears for the, yeah, in part of the teaching. Can you tell that story, what that represents, the giraffe? It has to do with this curiosity piece, right?
Well, yeah, and it's actually, I think Marshall chose the giraffe as the mascot for nonviolent communication because the giraffe is the land animal with the largest heart. And it also has this long neck, it can get a perspective. It's like looking out over all the land and getting a perspective of, what I say now is going to impact way and way out in the future and ripple out. And giraffes are also very strong. And one swift kick from a giraffe can kill a lion. So it's not about, oh, I'm going to be all mushy and weak and walk all over me, touchy-feely. There's a power in and strength in becoming vulnerable and speaking for our needs and bringing our authenticity forward and offering empathy and understanding. It's empowerment, really, truly. So that, and also I love the metaphor of the giraffe sticking its neck out, like we're taking the risk. I'm willing to stick my neck out and try and be vulnerable. Something that you were saying a minute ago kind of touched on something I also wanted to share, JJ, which is around the empowerment you've mentioned a couple times around victimhood or this kind of victim consciousness and the possibility of tapping into needs in a new way. And this is what I consider to be one of the nuances or more subtle or deeper aspects of NVC, which is something that we call the living energy of needs, the beauty of the needs, that all the needs are all, it's sort of like ice cream. There's ice cream, but there's so many different flavors, right? So needs, yes, they're beautiful needs. They're qualities of life that nourish us as human beings. And each one is so very unique, has a unique frequency or flavor, essence to it. And when we can tap into those needs and the energy of those needs in an internal way, there's this possibility of actually filling up with the beautiful life energy of something we hold precious, like love or belonging or honesty, whatever it might be, that I can actually tap into that quality of life in and of itself. So whether anybody's doing something externally or not, I can fill up with this energy. And now I can notice the impact of it on my body, my heart, my feelings. And I am no longer in a place of lack. Whether anything gets experienced externally, I am full. This is, to me, the core of abundance here now. I have access to this energy. I am no longer begging for it or needy, so to speak, that kind of energy that pushes people away. But when I come with something I'm holding, with this incredible value and fullness in me, and I say, I want to experience this with you. Would you be willing to? And now it's an invitation to experience something beautiful together instead of you need to make me feel better by doing, I've got this fullness and I'm already bringing it. This is that part of I'm going to bring my wholeness and my fullness to a relationship by accessing those needs. Now I'm never suffer from lack. Now I might have preferences about how I'd like to experience the fulfillment of needs or express them or have other people express them. I might have preferences. It's icing on the cake, that's the party. Now we get to celebrate because, hey, we both said, yes, we want to experience this and we want to experience it together, or we want to express it in the world in a particular way from fullness. So we're no longer victims. Nobody's doing anything to us or depriving us of something. Yeah. So I just got excited, wanted to share that.
I know that was a beautiful presentation of that concept. And what I love about what you add to it that I haven't been, so when someone comes and they want to work on something and they look at their life and they say they're not happy or there's something going on, I've even used the feelings and needs list just to say, look at the needs and circle any need that's on that list that you're currently not experiencing. Let's just start there. Forget the story, forget the who it's about or what it's about. Let's just look at basically, are you experiencing these feelings or not? These these energies in your life, or are you longing to have that? And so you had a different sort of positive spin on that, but where it's the same is I use law of attraction to say, right? So I'm all about quantum physics and law of attraction. So if we're, whatever it is that we're wanting, because the only reason why we want anything is to feel better. The only reason we want any of it at the end of the day, we think we want it because we think we're going to feel better when we have it. So the whole game of law of attraction and quantum physics is you have the access now to have the feelings of the thing that you're looking for. And in fact, vibrationally, you need to feel the thing before you can even match up to it to get it in the first place, right? So to me, right
here,
right. I mean, that's the simplicity of it. We can't come from a place of misalignment, unalignment, lack of alignment, or scarcity and want abundance. We can want it, but we're not matched up with it. So I love that you brought in the vibrational piece of that, because my show did start as Fit to Love, but then moved into spirit, purpose, and energy. So it's all about law of attraction, quantum physics, and that very subtle energetic distinction that you made that I am going to add into, because I'm more clinical with it. And what I loved, except for today, there was somebody in one of my programs today who I can tell she's needing or wanting something that to her, she wants to involve her boyfriend. And I said, and I don't want ever to people to think that, well, I want people to be empowered to know how to generate these feelings for themselves, so they don't blame anybody, need anybody, force anybody, shame anybody for giving it to them. But of course there's an invitation to connect. Of course there's I would really love this. I in a different model with sort of with another teaching, if you will, there's a script that I use and for couples and for even anyone in a some kind of conflict. And one of the things that I did not think to say in my own marriage, but I say to everybody else is, when you approach your spouse or partner or conflict person, loved one, to have this conversation, start out by asking them, or start off by telling them, I love you. And I would really love to be more connected to you. And I have something. Would you like to be more connected with me? Like, would you like, and then once we have that buy-in, here's the tool I'd like to use to create that connection. Would you be willing to try that with me? Right. Versus what most of us do when we get upset is blame the other person and say, well, you have to do this because you're not treating me this nice way, or you're being mean to me, and so you need to change. And that never works. So I love what you just added. It really it brings everything together for me. And I'm sure people that are listening who have experienced some with NVC. I've had, like I told you, Roger on the show a couple of times, way in the beginning, on Fit to Love. I don't think he's ever been on Spirit, Purpose, and Energy, but those early nonviolent communication episodes were probably 2015 and 14 on Fit to Love. So, we're due. It's 2023. We're due for a little bit more injection of nonviolent communication. And I'm glad that I saw that your book was out there and that we can help people together get more curious and create more space and find out how to make life more wonderful. I love that.
Yes.
Great. So we're going to go to livecompassionbook.com or jjfulzanes.com/conflict will get you the 9 powerful ways to decrease conflict now pamphlet. That's free. And please get Kathy's book. Anything else you want to say about your book or?
Yeah. I wanted to share also the offer that goes with the 9 powerful ways. This past week, I've been doing a series of events for people who have come on a daily basis, and I recorded 5 of those sessions, which I'm also offering for people to take me up on and receive. I'll have those recordings on that page with the 9 powerful ways to decrease conflict. And that is called Live Compassion Moments. And there are 5 video sessions that are focused on living compassion. The first one being a meditation. The second one, open to compassion through curiosity. The third one, explore compassion through feelings. Then compassionate embrace through needs, and opening the heart of compassion with requests. So you might enjoy having those and just listening to those, one each day, and kind of letting it be a focus for the day. So yes, and once again, I'm just really delighted to be able to share and be able to encourage people to live compassion. It's not just a thought that we're having or a longing, that we actually have tools available to us to bring our hearts from the inside out into our relationships and into our world. And I'm So grateful to have the opportunity to share with you and all of your listeners and viewers, JJ. Thank you so much.
Well, I can't wait to get the book. I mean, I have it on PDF, but I like books in my hands. So I look forward to, I think that's a really great goal, especially in the new year. It's a great gift idea for other people who are wanting to help create better relationships and feelings in their lives, to maybe even start a little group, get a group together and everybody get the book, and then, talk amongst each other about what you did or what the most powerful teaching each day or each week was. And then you can follow that, or each month, and then go through the entire year with a group of people living compassion. I love it. Thank you,
It's
Kathy, so much.
exactly one of the things I'm thinking of doing. So watch for that. I'll be doing some kind of a year-long community around the book, and would love to have anyone join in with that.
livecompassionbook.com. Thank you, Kathy, so much. Everybody get the book.
Thanks, JJ.